start solving. If you don't know me, my name is Peter. I'm doing a series here on how to W business for the next 30 days. I'm going to be recording videos to go through these topics in depth. Who am I? I'm a media buyer turned CMO consultant. I've managed about 500 million in ad spend in my life and worked with some top brands in the United States. These days, I live here in Rio de Janeiro, normally sunny, not this week. And if you want to reach out to me, have any questions, you can leave a comment or you can reach out to me on social media. Today, we're going to be answering this question of how do we identify the number one thing holding back your business, holding back your growth, and then how do we address that and how do we solve that? Everything that we're talking about today is going to come from the theory of constraints. What is a growth bottleneck? Point of failure, right? I talked to you about like factory line, right? Your business is this factory line. What part in that conveyor belt has an issue? What's the weak link that's holding everything back? And if you solve this one problem, the whole thing is going to have improved performance. You cannot scale things any faster than that slowest point. Let's think about an e-commerce brand, right? Or actually, let's think about a business that depends on a sales team. If the weakness is your number of sales reps picking up the phone, you don't have enough people to pick up the phone. You could spend millions more in advertising. You could get a lot more phone calls coming in, but until you solve that problem of how many hands are picking phones, then your performance is not going to scale any faster. So removing this one constraint is instantly going to improve our performance everywhere else. Like I said, everything comes from the theory of constraints. Every system has one constraint limiting your output. Improving non-constraints are not going to help at all. Like I mentioned in the sales center example, you could say, okay, we need more sales calls. And so then you can go and double your advertising spend. But until you solve that constraint, it's not going to turn into any more revenue. Where we start is with this KPI dashboard. We talked about it day one, we talked about it day two, we talked about it day three. We're going to talk about it almost every day. Keep coming back to this KPI dashboard. Hopefully by this point, you've built a KPI dashboard. Hopefully by now, you've assigned a primary KPI metric for each of these stations on that conveyor belt. If you haven't, go back to yesterday's video where we've gone through all of the KPIs, and then you can pick out the ones and fit the ones that are right for your business. And then also hopefully on this dashboard, you have some conditional formatting to show if things are at your benchmarks or not. Make your decisions based off of this dashboard. An example would be a strong click-through rate, but a low conversion rate. You have a conversion bottleneck. A strong conversion rate, but a low repeat customer rate is a retention bottleneck. What you'll notice in both of these is a mismatch. You would expect them to come up. Strong click-through rate indicates strong creative and a strong offer to some degree. Your conversion rate's dropping. Also, a strong click-through rate would signify you're putting your ads in front of the right people. So if you're putting your ads in front of the right people, you have a strong offer and you have strong creative, that should translate to a stronger conversion rate. When it doesn't, why is the appropriate question. Also, strong conversion rate, you would expect you're converting at a better rate. You're getting better customers in there. You're getting people who like you better, right? Like your sales have gone up, your conversion rate has gone up, you're selling easier. Why aren't these people sticking around, right? So whenever you look at the data, and the numbers that should match don't match, that's a good place where I start digging in. Like whenever the numbers that should match don't match, I really want to know why that is. And then you're getting into your bottleneck that you want to solve. Always use your sheet. Always use the data. Don't just wing it. Go off of your intuition or gut feeling. And also don't go off the gut feeling of people who are reporting to you. If there's an issue on your KPI sheet stemming from sales, don't just Say, oh, it's because we're not getting enough qualified people in fund. Dig deeper, right? Ask the next question, go a step deeper, get the full picture, and have them show you the data that they're using to make that decision, and make sure that data is sound. I had this situation recently where we increased our ad spend, we increased our calls booked, and we decreased the attendees. The sales center throughout this whole time is saying we don't have enough calls. When you look at the sales center reporting, it shows like a 50% show rate. When you look at our marketing reporting, it shows like a 10% show rate. Those types of breaks are interesting too. Why? What calls are marketing reporting that sales is not reporting on? And then when you ask the questions, oh, there are these no-shows, and the no-shows are not getting reported. Okay, so that actual show rate is much smaller than the show rate that we thought. And if you didn't dig into that data, you would just look and say 50% show rate, all looks good, let's move on with it. Okay, there's two different types of constraints here. One is a capacity constraint and one is a conversion constraint. Capacity constraint, I already talked about. This scenario where you have more marketing calls coming in, but you don't have enough sales reps to answer the phone, right? Any of these, you don't have enough staff, you don't have enough inventory, anything like that, it's capacity constraint. Then a conversion constraint would be the number of people moving through this like conveyor belt analogy that we have. So this would be like holes in the bucket, a leaky funnel where too many people are getting weeded out. And so those are the two primary ones. And a lot of times you have to dig a few layers, a few degrees back to get to the core issue. Identify which side is holding you back, go to your data, make your decisions based off of that, and ask a lot of questions to dig into it. Okay, I mentioned dig deeper. A lot of times, most of the time, people are treating symptoms. And most of the time, I know this because most of the time, people always think it's media buying. I've worked with so many brands who say, everything in my business is dialed down, just media buying is not. Never is the case. The worst media buyers I know have been wildly successful with good promos. When the funnel is optimized, it does not take a lot to media buy for it and get your traffic into it. If there are holes in the bucket, then you have some problems that you need to look for. So ask the next level questions, right? This analogy I gave you with a client where there's this mismatch in reporting. That is one step deeper. Okay, our show up rate is weak. Why is our show up rate weak? Well, marketing doesn't know that these people didn't show up. So marketing can't tailor messaging to them. Marketing didn't know that those people did not show up or were marked no show because this reporting feedback loop with sales wasn't in place. We don't have the technology, the software problem. So maybe the real problem is that we don't have sales feedback in a CRM and not just the show rate problem. Ask the why question several times, right? Sales are down, why? Conversion rates down, why? The leads are bad, why? The targeting is off, okay, right? Dig deeper and keep going until you find the root problem. Always use your data to figure it out. We talked about this already. We'll talk about it some more. Always use the numbers. And if someone has a hypothesis, get the data to back it up. And think about, even before you look at the data, what data would prove this is right? What data would prove this is wrong? If this is true, I would expect to see X, Y, Z in the data. If that's not true, then you already know, right? Sometimes we can be subjective and look at reporting and then have the reporting tell us what we want to hear. Think about it beforehand, before you get into the reporting. This is what I would expect to see if this is true. And then use those rules to validate what you're seeing. Watch the sheet. This is why we have laid out our dashboard in order of the stations you go through in the conveyor belt, right? See where you see the drop off and where things fall off. Okay. Always pick off the biggest issue first. Always prioritize the biggest issue first. You can only effectively solve one problem at a time. And so choose the number one thing holding you back. Focus on that, get it solved. And then, like we talked about yesterday, reflect on it a little bit, see where the next biggest bottleneck is, go back to your data, see where the break is now, and then in the next cycle go and work on that. We talked about this execution cycle yesterday, right? Go through the process, fix this one most important thing, and then once it's improved, come back and repeat this process and look for the next thing. Always go through. You have to do each one of these steps. So whatever your current constraint is, first try to maximize the output of what you have there. My example of a sales show up rate: squeeze every revenue that you can out of those people who show up, right? This example with my client, we've done just that. The sales conversion rate has gone through the roof because we're squeezing all the revenue we can. We're throwing promotions at those people, everything we can to make sure all of these calls, or as many as possible, are converting. Align all of the other processes with that bottleneck. The same thing. Show up rate on a call is both a sales problem and a marketing problem, right? To me, the biggest driver for people showing up on a call is the positioning. Is marketing giving these people a reason they have to show up? If you just put on someone's calendar, call, I'm going to come sell you, no one is going to come to that. If it at all looks like a sales pitch, no one is going to show up to that call, right? If it looks like a valuable session, if it looks like they're going to get something out of it, if you're telling them this is why you cannot afford to miss this call, then people show up. So the messaging, the alignment on the front end, maybe technology and software solution on the back end, right? Both sides can solve that same process. You have multiple systems there that can both work on that problem. Increase the capacity in the short term while you're solving this problem. Make sure that you have the right tools there. Make sure that you have the right automations there. Maybe if you have like other parts of the company, right? Your technology team, maybe they're prioritizing this month the pages that are needed for the funnels that are going to get people to show back up. Maybe you need a technology solution. Maybe your calendar booking is wrong. Maybe you should be testing a different calendar booking. And really, if that's the problem, you should be testing all of these things, right? And so get the tech team involvement to prioritize whatever is needed for that specific task. And then once it's no longer constrained, hopefully you're doing this on the sprints we talked about yesterday. And by the end of that sprint, you can reflect what's working, what's not working, and then identify where you should go next. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. Some common things would be like in marketing. Okay, marketing's not getting enough qualified leads. Why is it? Right? Dig deeper and diagnose the true problem. Maybe there's new campaigns that are needed. Maybe there's new creative that's needed. Maybe there is a hole in that funnel getting people there. In sales, your leads aren't converting. Maybe it's, again, technology. Like in my example, they're not getting flagged no-show. An automated no-show campaign cannot go to those people. Maybe you don't have enough sales reps to be sending out the pre-meeting messaging that you need. Hey, I'm going to be chatting with you in an hour. Do you have any questions before we go? Are you all good? In delivery, you could have lags in fulfillment. You could have lead time issues. You could have quality issues. You could have customer complaints. I mentioned why. These questions are super important, right? I do it a lot where I've worked most of my career as a media buyer. Sales conversion rate's almost always an important thing. And when sales is complaining, hey, we're not getting good customers, the lead quality is bad, I always want to know why, right? If you have it in a CRM, you can go look at the CRM and see the notes in the CRM, even make a pivot table with it and make some decisions. But if sales is saying certain things, giving certain feedback, we also live in the age of AI, right? You could take an export of sales CRM, throw it in some AI tool and get a summary of like the biggest issues there. And then you can decide if you have some quality issues to to address. Another one is the founder bottleneck. I talked a lot about this yesterday, I think, right? If you're trying to prioritize too many things at the same time, all of these could be, bottlenecks holding you back. If you're trying to prioritize too many things at the same time, almost unequivocally, that's the biggest bottleneck that needs to be solved, right? Give people some autonomy to function their stage in the conveyor belt and align people on a core priority each time. Have it a continuous loop. The continuous loop is the lesson from yesterday, right? Run the sprint, go through each step, find your problem, brainstorm some ideas. This is summary from yesterday, but brainstorm some ideas, get some creative ideas in there, make sure that you're picking the right fixes. Again, it's a gamble. I recommended the book Thinking in Bets yesterday. When you come up with hypothesis here, it's a gamble. A/B test it, put tests in place. What experiments could we run to solve this problem? Okay. And make sure you stay disciplined. Make sure you're only focusing on one constraint at a time. Don't have your team on a bunch of different things at the same time. Every department can really only be focused on one of these problems at any given time. If you have a bunch of different divisions in your company, have people working in different divisions on certain things, that's great. But if it is like this example that I just talked to you about, sales and marketing need to be focused on the same problem, and they can't be focused on anything else. Like always, these are the books that I recommend going. Everything that I talked about mostly came from the goal, but lean analytics and traction also helpful. So if you're really interested in this topic, go read The Goal. Great resource for diving into this more. Okay. Thank you guys for coming to day 4 here. If you have questions, let me know, and I will see you guys again.